Hey guys, and welcome back to your one room schoolhouse. In today's video, I am going to be giving you an update on how our first week of school went for this school year 2025 to 2026. If you are new to this channel and you've not seen my face before, hi, my name is Mary Barfield and I am a homeschooling mama to a first and a third grader, and we are currently in our third year of homeschooling. So before I get into how everything went this past week, I actually have an announcement for you guys. If you saw my community post on YouTube from yesterday, you probably already know what I'm about to say, but I am excited to announce that I have finally, after a year of getting comments asking me to be able to sell some of the things that I'm making, I am finally opening an Etsy shop. I don't know why it took me so long, considering it really wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be trying to do that. So I am excited to tell you guys that your one room schoolhouse is open on Etsy. I'll link the shop down below for you guys. At present, I only have 2 items in there because I'm just getting started. I have a lot of things I want to put in there, but it's just going to take a little bit of time, and over the next couple of weeks you will see things popping up in there. But just to kind of give you an idea of what I've got in there so far, I've got my what I call like daily homeschool rhythm cards. I've got a bunch of those in there. It's all one set. Everything's digital, so you just print it off yourself. You can laminate it like I did for long-term longevity. But I use these in a way that is a visual schedule for my kiddos. I put it in a hanging like wall pocket organizer I got off Amazon. I'll link that down below. And it just kind of cuts down on the, hey mom, what are we doing next? Hey mom, are we going anywhere this afternoon? Do we have co-op today? Do we have soccer today? For those younger kiddos who don't have their own planner or schedule yet, which I know a lot of times doesn't happen until middle school or high school, having a nice aesthetic way of being able to say, hey kiddos, this is what's happening next. So go check that out in my shop if you're looking for something like that. I'll link that down below for you guys. The other thing I have in my shop right now, which I think came out so beautifully, is I created my own McGuffey companion notebook. So this one is a little different than the one I've been using from Verily Schoolhouse because it doesn't have the guided dotted middle line for kiddos who are still learning how to write and working on their penmanship. This is more for kiddos who already have good control over their handwriting. So I would say 3rd grade to 5th, 6th grade is what this would be perfect for. I'm including in the digital print 3 different types of covers. So here's the first cover, front and back. I thought this would be kind of good if you had a boy. It's kind of more neutral. The next one is not very neutral. You'll see why. It is very girly. There's the front cover. And oh, also I was gonna say on the inside of that other cover, it said this book belongs to. And this one has the same thing on the inside of that, except it's an inverse of the colors. So I thought that came out really cool with the light purple and then the white background. And then I thought that came out so well that I decided to make a cover like that in case somebody didn't want it to be so much color and just be a little bit more like a light lilac. So here's this one. And then the inside cover has the same, this book belongs to. And then the back covers, of course, because if you're binding it and you want it to be cohesive on the back, I've got this all in one little shot. So that's the back cover. And then the back cover for the full purple. And then the pages themselves are based on kind of how I do my lessons with my oldest daughter. So it's 4 pages per lesson in the McGuffey reader, whichever one you're using. So first we start off with the child doing a written narration. If they would like to, they can do a drawing narration, or they can skip that if they don't want to, or if they're too young to really want to write or their stamina is just not there and they just want to draw a narration, let them go for it, right? Give you an oral narration and then draw it. Next, I have a page for the words for the McGuffey lessons. So what I do is I would write the words here before our lesson starts. I would go to the lesson and see what we have. I would write them, so the child would then read them again. They would write them next to it. This kind of helps with spelling and getting the word in the mind's eye. And then I would have them cover this, and then they would test the words. I would say the words to them verbally, and they would write it down just like a traditional spelling test. Then underneath, I have a little vocabulary doodle spot. So on this line, write one of the words that maybe they don't know that well. And I would write that down. I would have them get a dictionary out. We'd look up the word. We'd find out if it was a noun, adjective, a verb, and I would have them draw a little doodle that kind of represents what the definition of that word is. So it just kind of helps with vocabulary skills. Then next we have copywork. So pick out a passage that is appropriate for your kiddos' ability and maturity and where they are with their copywork. Go over and sit in this copywork passage, go over punctuations, any grammar. Why is that word capitalized? Why is there a comma here? Why is there an ly on the end of that word? Is that an adverb? Kind of talk about those things. And then last but not least for the lesson, you would then do a dictation passage. So I'm really excited. I'm really happy with how it came out. Of course, this is just my first go. I might make additional covers that you guys can purchase additionally for like $1 or $2 or whatever if you just want a different cover. I didn't know how many options I should give in the file, so I thought 3 was good. I kind of hit 1 boy, 1 girl. But if you guys are looking for something like that, I've got it in my shop now. I'm super excited, and I'm going to be using this with my oldest daughter this year, so I'm kind of pumped. And she actually likes this cover the best, even though this is the boy neutral color cover. She liked this one, so I might print it out for her. We'll see. All right, y'all, now that all that housekeeping business is out of the way, let's get into the actual video. So this is going to be an update on how this first week of school went. I am going to, I think, try and do monthly updates this year. Leave down in the comments if that's what you would prefer. I think last year I did more term updates, or whenever I had something big I wanted to update you guys on. But if you would prefer me to do monthly updates, I will commit to trying to do that. I think that's actually a pretty good idea, and it kind of helps me process like what's going on in our homeschool as well. So it's twofold. It has 2 benefits to it. But I'm going to do this first week, of course, because it was a good week, you guys. I'm really excited that I feel like now I'm in my groove. I'm in my 3rd year of homeschooling. I have a good sense of what kind of schedule works best for my kiddos. I've gotten much better at understanding, okay, I know this will take X amount of time. I know that's going to take this amount of time, and being able to craft a really well-balanced schedule for my kiddos, my family. Because sometimes you can write out the schedule on paper and it looks great, and then you implement it in person and you're like, oh no, that was terrible. It was too heavy on Monday and not enough on Friday and blah, 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 blah. I am happy to report that I am now getting the hang of it, and I'm getting a good sense of my family and what we can and cannot do in a day. So with that, if you guys saw my previous videos, you know that I was vying to do no more than like 3.5 hours of work a day. That's really what my goal was. And I was able to stick to that. Only one day did we hit like 3 hours and 20 minutes or 28 minutes, I think. I recorded every day. I was like, okay, I'm going to time myself, and I recorded what each subject took and how long and all that stuff. But most days were around the 3-hour mark, give or take a few minutes. And Friday, we did it in 2 hours. Now, that was intentional. I like to front load our week, make sure that we get the bulk of the big stuff scheduled at the beginning, because then as the week goes on, it's a lighter schedule at the end of the week. If we need to make up some stuff because we fell behind at the beginning of the week, we have that buffer time at the end of the week. The thing is that even though I front loaded our week, we were still able to get everything done Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So that Thursday was kind of even less time, and Friday, which is today, we just finished school and just had our lunch. It was just such a chill day, and that's kind of what I was going for. I know I'll never be able to be a 4-day-a-week person, or I don't know, maybe I could one day, but right now I'm not. But I would like our Fridays to be a lot more flexible and relaxed. And also, again, have that buffer space if we need to make up some stuff from the beginning of the school week. So let's get into my kiddos' individual subjects. So I'm going to hit my youngest daughter's, my 1st grader, Charlotte, her subjects first. Then I'll go over my 3rd grader subjects, Emery. And then after that, we'll go into group subjects and what those were and how it went. So starting first with Charlotte, my 1st grader. She had such a good week, you guys. So starting off with math, no changes there, and I'm sure no shock there. Math with confidence, grade 1, went great. We hopped in at week 19, which is where we'd left off at the end of the summer this past month. And even though we took a few weeks off for our summer, like truly took off, no curriculum, she just kind of jumped right back in like no time had been missed, didn't skip a beat, and it went really well. I asked her, I was like, why do you like math with confidence so much? And she said, the games are really fun, and I love the workbook sheets, like the worksheets. She said it's all just fun, and it makes it fun. So you know what? That's all I can ask for with math, because I know from personal experience with my oldest daughter, math can be really frustrating if you aren't careful. And I'm so glad that both my daughters now are in such a good place with math. So 2 thumbs up for math with confidence, per usual. All right, let's talk about language arts now with Charlotte. So for language arts, we are trying out this year Bookshark Language Arts Level 1. If you missed my flip through videos, go check those out. I'll leave a link down below for the playlist. And so far, so good. It's going really well. We just finished up week 4, which I know sounds weird since we're in week 1. We had done week 1 and week 2 during the summer to try it out to see if we would be interested in doing it, and it went really well. So we're like, let's keep going. So that means this week we completed week 3 and week 4 in here. And you're probably like, well, why'd you do 2 weeks in 1? Well, that's because my oldest daughter is her abilities are above the beginning of language arts level 1, but it would be too much of a stretch to have started her in language arts level 2 this year. Could she do it? Maybe, but I think it would be too much stress on her. Also, it's the spelling and the reading that her abilities are above. For the creative expressions, which is the writing portion in here, she's not done any of that. So if we skipped a whole level, I feel like that would leave some major gaps with her for the continuing on in the language arts program for Bookshark. So I wanted her to work her way through level 1. However, we are just moving at double the speed, right? We're just moving through, and when it starts getting challenging, that's where we're going to slow down and start doing the standard schedule. So ultimately we will start language arts level 2 this year at some point. I'm just not sure how that'll pan out. We might do double lessons the entire level. I'm not quite sure. We'll see kind of how that pans out for her. Something that we are doing different than I originally had planned with language arts level 1 is I originally wasn't going to do the creative expression. If you watched one of my videos, I initially was like, it's too rigorous for my Charlotte Mason brain and style of teaching. I was like, we're just going to stick with the McGuffey reader. Well, I also, just to see, I included the student activity sheets for the creative expression this summer when we did our trial period this summer to try it out. And she actually really liked those creative expression sheets, so much so that I was like, okay, let's do creative expression this year. And we're just going to use it as a tool. If it doesn't fit us perfectly, that's fine. We'll use the bits and pieces that do work for us. Well, it's funny because in that video, if you know which one I'm talking about, I kind of make this joke where I'm like, what kid needs to learn a palindrome? Like what a palindrome is. It's a word that's spelled the same way frontwards and backwards. And I'm eating my words because this week was the week that we did that lesson about palindromes, and she thought it was the coolest thing to find out that words that spelled the same ways forwards and backwards, like dad. She keeps telling my husband, she's like, Dad, your name's a palindrome. And he's like, what are you teaching her? I was like, I don't know, it's just part of the language arts program. But she actually thought that was one of the coolest things, where I was sitting here going, that might be go way over her head, and she might be resistant to it. I was absolutely wrong. I eat my words. I back out of everything I just said. But to that same point, some of it is a little bit too rigorous at times in the form of the copy work. For example, there was one passage, I think it was for week 3 or 4, where it was just too long for her in that moment. I could tell her stamina was waning. And so she was like, Mommy, that's really long. I don't know. And I was like, that's fine. Just do the first half of it. Do the first sentence and not the second sentence. Because this is what I'm realizing going into my 3rd year of homeschool. Curriculum is a tool for us to use in the best way possible to support us and our children in their learning journey. We don't have to do it as completely written, and that's okay if we don't, because everybody's different. That's why we homeschool. We like to customize our education to our kiddos. And so for me, letting go of that and recognizing that it's a tool for me to wield in the best way possible to teach my child, what an epiphany. Being able to let go of that and just use it as a tool, man, oh man, it's been amazing. So another thing to be said with that is, for example, even the instructions in the book recognizes, because it's 1st grade, they're like, have your child dictate this to you and you write it down on the workbook. There's some parts where it'll say, have your child turn this sentence, add descriptive wording to the sentence, but it doesn't tell me to have her dictate it to me. So if I'm like, I don't think she can handle that, I'll ask her if she wants to do it, and she'll be like, Mom, that's a lot. I'm like, that's fine. You tell me, I'll write it down for you. So that way she's still getting the benefits of the exercise, but the physical demands of the exercise are not weighing on her, and she can still be creative and think through and learn what she needs to learn for the language arts activity. 2 other things that she absolutely loves about Bookshark is that it incorporates Explode the Code. She is a big Explode the Code fan. And the other thing that she's really loving is the reader. It's the I Can Read book, book 1 right now that we're in. And she just told me, she's like, I think the stories are funny and it's kind of just fun to read it. They also have good morals in it. Like one was about a boy who didn't listen to his dad and he got bit by a pig. And she literally, after reading it, was like, he should have listened to his dad. I'm like, I know. Maybe sometimes you guys should listen to me too. So I was like, can we connect the dots and recognize that that was a good story that you should learn, that maybe you listen to mommy and daddy. So I think she's kind of starting to get there. So I'm liking the readers too, because they have good messages, but also it's really helping solidify her phonics and her reading skills. So all in all, 2 thumbs up for Book Shark. Language Arts 1 is going fabulously. So last but not least, before we move into my 3rd grader, I wanted to talk about my 1st grader science. She's doing a separate science from her older sister. We are doing the Good and the Beautiful units. We started off with Field and Flowers this term. We did 2 lessons this week. It maybe took 10 to 15 minutes each lesson, and it was perfect. She really enjoyed it. One of them had a movie that she watched on the Good and the Beautiful app. The other one was more of an activity. So actually both weeks had activities, but the second week had a story that we read out of the book, Big Book of Science Stories, and she loved both of them. We learned about deciduous trees, where the leaves, they lose their leaves in the winter, and then the second lesson we learned about conifers, so cone-bearing trees. And so the first activity we did was we went around our property and found leaves and did leaf rubbings. And then the second activity we did was we made the standard pine cone peanut butter and birdseed bird feeder, and it's actually hanging out in our front tree that has a birdhouse in there. The girls are like, please let a bird come and live in our house. So they hang it next to it, hoping to entice a bird to come live in there. But of course, my oldest daughter heard we were doing the activity. She's like, wait, can I do those? And I was like, of course, you can come in and enjoy the activity. So not shocked by that. So she got to enjoy it as well. And it's just going really well. My daughter now knows that the cones have the seeds and they close up their little scales, and then when it's no longer freezing cold, they open up and they spread their seeds everywhere, so new trees grow. So really good science week this week with my youngest. Okay, next up, let's talk about my 3rd grader. So these first couple of weeks, we are trying out some new stuff with her. First things first, we are trialing out using a working binder for her. Now, I just had this binder lying around. If this ends up being something permanent we want to do, I'm going to go ahead and get her I have a Flex Mead binder. I'm gonna get her one of these guys because I think that'll be much more durable, but also it can flip over, so it's like a notebook, so she can write in it easier. So if this continues to go well, it did go well this week, I will invest in one of those binders for her. But basically what we realize is she has so many different moving components of her language arts and her math and everything that it's a lot of workbooks. And do I love binding a workbook? Heck yeah. But is that really probably the most effective way for her? I don't think so. Maybe not. So I saw on somebody else's channel, I think it was Science Mama Angie, I think she's the one that did this. She did a working binder for both her kiddos. And so what she does is every 4 weeks, she pulls out 4 weeks of each subject for them of work pages or whatever she needs to do, or loose leaf, and she puts them in their binders. And then she pulls out the old 4 weeks, and then she's able to file those away and do whatever she needs to do with them. So in here, I have her math fact tests. I have her math work pages. She has her creative expressions from language arts, which I'll talk about that in a second, because originally I wasn't doing that. She's also got her McGuffey pages in here as well. She's got spelling, she's got handwriting, and then logic from Mindbenders, and that's all in here. And one, it made sense from a simplification and storage perspective, but also it gives her a sense of independence, because the things she can do independently, she just goes ahead and gets them done. She moves the tab to the next page, she completes that one, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna move on to this thing, mommy. And we just, it's been really good in a lot of different ways. So far it's going really well. I'm gonna still give it another 2 to 3 weeks to make sure we like it. And if we do, then I'll go ahead and get her a Flex binder and let her pick out the color cover that she wants. So let's kick this off for my oldest daughter with math. Math Mammoth grade 3 is going Going well. It's a well-oiled machine. We have found our math and we're not stopping. She did say it was a little boring this week, and I'm sure it was because chapter 1 of grade 3 is a full review of all math and addition and subtraction facts from grade 2. And since we only had about a 3-week break this summer from math, she's like, I just did this a few weeks ago, Mommy. When do I get to the fun stuff? When do I get to do multiplication? And I was like, I never thought in my wildest dreams that you would ever say, when do I get to do multiplication, and say it was fun. But we have come full circle with math, and I'm so excited. So she's fine with it. It's fine. And it's kind of been nice because it's a little lighter right now because she's going over concepts she understands, which is kind of a nice intro to the year. It's not super like heavy stuff already. So I told her, I was like, just be grateful. Just wait till it starts getting a little harder. Then you're going to be like, I want to go back to week 1 where it was a lot easier. So otherwise, it's going great, no complaints, all thumbs up over here. Okay, talking about language arts now. So something more different we're gonna try out for the next couple of weeks is we are actually doing Bookshark Language Arts Level 3 in its entirety. Originally, I was only gonna do like 1 or 2 things from this, but we aren't, and I'll explain why with each subject, how this all came about. So let's start with spelling, right? So originally I was gonna do the spelling words from Language Arts Level 2, which I also own because again, I bought all these used and I was able to get them all for a really good price to try them out. So my oldest daughter has not done really a formal spelling program as of yet, and I just was like, maybe we should drop her down to the Level 2 spelling, just so she's not missing any gaps. Well, the week or 2 before we started school, I was like, hey, let's go through some of these spelling words and see if this is where you are or if we should bump you up to Level 3. She knew all the words. She knew how to spell them. And then when I asked her, well, why did you use EA instead of this or whatever, why'd you put an E on the end? She was able to give me the phonics rule behind the reason why that she spelled it that way. And I think it's just because phonics made so much sense to her. And then she's like, well, phonics is just the inverse of spelling. And so she used her phonics knowledge to spell properly. So she was able to clap out the syllables, all that stuff. So I was like, this seems like it's gonna be way too easy for you. Let's move you up to Language Arts Level 3 spelling. So now we're doing Language Arts Level 3 spelling, so that was something we weren't doing before previously. Another thing that I'm going to tell you, you're going to probably be sad about, but after this week, she was like, do we have to do the Land of Kakiak spelling pages? Can we just do it the way they do in Bookshark? And I said, well, we don't have to, but why? And she said, Mommy, it's kind of like, it's a lot, it's boring. I was like, oh, okay. And so what I found through my conversation with her is that when she knows something, this was the same with All About Spelling, when she knows something well, and then I'm having her go through the exercises of doing something and over-engineering it, she's like, this is overkill, Mom. Like, can we just do a spelling test and move on? Like, that she didn't say that, but that's kind of what she's feeling. And so then it makes her more frustrated with the subject, and I don't want her to be frustrated with spelling. So I basically told her, because she was like, well, how does Bookshark do it? And I said, well, day 1, we introduce the words, we go over the rule behind why those words are spelled that way, because they focus on 1 rule per week and the spelling words match that rule. And she said, okay, and then what? And then second day we do a pre-test. I literally read the words to you, you try and spell them, and any that you don't get right, we have you write 3 to 5 times just so you get it in your mind's eye. And she said, okay. And then, day 3, we do a pre-test again of those words you misspelled originally. And then day 4 is just a full-on test. And she's like, let's do that. I was like, are you sure? And she said, yeah, I'd rather just do that because I know the words and this just seems like it's too much. So we are pausing the Land of Kakiak spelling pages because I think they're really solid if you get to really challenging words. I think right now the words for her for spelling in Level 3 are just too easy, and that's fine. Or not too easy, but she knows them, right? And so I think it's overhandling using the Land of Kakiak pages. I think if we start to get to more challenging words, those Land of Kakiak activity pages will come in handy for learning the spelling of those words. So I'm saving them. We're not doing anything with them. They're not going anywhere in my opinion. I'll let you guys know if we bring them back in. But it's also just nice to have them in her binder. They're still in here and we just want to do a random activity. We can use them. They're there at our disposal. So that's how we're handling spelling right now. Next, we are doing the readers from level 3. This week we started The Secret Valley by Clyde Robert Beulah. She loves this book. It's about a family that's moving from Missouri to California during the gold rush era, trying to go find some gold, all the things that happened to them. It's really well written in a way that is fun for her to read. It puts herself in the kiddo's shoes because there's a boy and a girl, Ellen and Frank, I think are their names. And they've got a cat Nugget, and it's kind of just what was going on during that time period in America. We also use the discussion questions, but in a different way than Bookshark says too. After she finishes a chapter, I have her give me a narration. And if her narration includes all the information that we would have used with the discussion questions put in the instructor guide, because it's more like reading comprehension questions, not narration, I just move on. We don't do the discussion questions because she's answered it through her narration. If she doesn't talk about that information in her narration, then I will bring in the discussion questions before we move on to the next thing that we're doing that day. But it's going really well. It's at her proper reading level. It's not too hard for her to read. By the end of some of the chapters, she's like, whew, that was a lot, but not like a lot like, oh, I can't do it. It's just, you can tell she's starting to kind of challenge her reading ability. Like she's got to read more in one sitting, and she's actually really enjoying it. She hasn't complained at all. She told me, she's like, I love these books. This is great. So she's excited for this rest of the school year with the readers that we have scheduled. The other thing we are now doing that we weren't originally going to do is Wordly Wise Bee. This came with the package when I purchased it used. I was planning on holding on to that maybe for my youngest daughter. My oldest saw the workbook. She flipped through it and she's like, I want to do this. And I was like, okay, here we go. Let's do it. Let's do it. It's only one time per week too. It's pretty simple. So like this week she read her word list. She learned the vocab for it. We went over it together. And then her activity for this week was to say if sentences were true or false based on the vocabulary. She got all of them right. And she really enjoyed it. She thought it was fun. So again, it's just once a week, and it's just ingraining vocabulary skills at the end of the day. So the big thing that we weren't originally going to do that we are doing, and it's the last portion of Language Arts Level 3, is the creative expression section of Language Arts Level 1, which is the activity sheets, the writing. So after doing some research and after trying out these sheets this week, I decided, along with Emery, that we are going to continue with creative writing, at least for now, creative expressions, because essentially it's kind of the other side of writing and rhetoric, which is the other writing program we're doing, which I'll talk about in a second. But long story short, creative expression is more creative writing, whereas writing and rhetoric is learning the mechanics behind writing and how to write a really solid foundational argumentative writing, persuasive writing. So they're kind of like two sides of writing that if you can do both really well, you will be a fantastic writer. And honestly, it's not too much having her do both at the same time. We tried that out this week. We're like, let's see how this goes. And it wasn't too much for her at all. Reason being is because writing and rhetoric, also we've decided after talking with Emery, she said, I really like writing and rhetoric, but I don't know if I want to do it every week because it is kind of a lot on its own. And not like time-wise, but like I think mental ability for her. She kind of got exhausted after doing it. So the thing is, with writing and rhetoric, here I have it somewhere. So with Writing and Rhetoric Book 1 and Book 2, they are scheduled per the Classical Academic Press to be done starting in grade 3 or grade 4. Emery's in grade 3. She's also a really young third grader, and although she is language arts inclined, she still is a young third grader. So I was like, well, hey, what if we do this? What if we do Book 1 over this year? That means we have 14 weeks of lessons that we can do over 36 weeks. So we can really spread it out. We can skip some weeks where we don't do it. And she said, that's perfect. I think that would be the best way to do it. Because she said, I don't really want to drop it. I really like it. I just don't know if I can do it every week. And I was like, I think that's the most mature and responsible thing I've heard come out of your mouth. So I agreed with her. So our plan at this point is just to do Book 1. If her maturity and her stamina starts to pick up and we want to, we'll bring in Book 2, but I'll keep you guys updated on that. So along with that, I'm not 100% committed to doing creative expression yet all the way through. However, this week went really well and Emery really does like it. So I have a very strong feeling we will be doing it, but I still want to try it out for a couple more weeks before I give you guys the 100% we are going to do it the rest of this year. If we do, we will not be doing first language lessons, our grammar. We're going to drop it. We didn't even do it this week because I wanted to give her an opportunity to try out creative expression on its own, because Book Shark's writing also naturally incorporates grammar concepts and grammar practice. So that would be completely redundant and overkill, and she had no problem dropping first language lessons. So I was like, that's cool, we can do that. The one thing also I was gonna tell her is like, hey, maybe we should drop the McGuffey reader, the second McGuffey reader. And she looked at me with daggers in her eyes and she was like, we will do no such thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. She loves the McGuffey reader, and honestly, it's not too much work. It maybe is 5 to 10 minutes, 4 days a week to do 2 lessons. And it's a really good, I don't know what you want to call it, practice, daily practice, I would say, of all language arts concepts, because you're doing narration, copywork, dictation, and that's just checking all the boxes across the language arts. So we start our day with it, with our language arts, and it just kind of sets the speed for things. I don't know. It's just a really nice, I don't know what you'd call it, like a check or something like that, but it just makes sure you're hitting all the things that you need to do for language arts, essentially. So we will be continuing with McGuffey Reader. If we do what we said we were going to do with writing and rhetoric, we will be doing actually more McGuffey Reader, because we're just going to replace the days that we were going to do writing and rhetoric with the McGuffey lesson. So that's kind of our plan moving forward with writing in general. So the only other thing I was going to talk about for Emery was science. So she is doing elemental science, biology for grammar years. She loves this. She thinks it's so much fun. I will probably do a review on this once we get a month or 2 more under our belt. But she just thinks it's the bee's knees. So I'm not going to go into depth here because this video is getting super long and I want to get into group subjects, but she gave this so many thumbs up. She was so excited to do this, and apparently it did not disappoint her because she was so pumped after we finished our lessons. Okay, so all we have left to go over is group subjects. So I'm going to start off with our morning time basket, whatever you want to call it. I think I'm going to start calling it morning basket. I don't know. It's in a basket this year, so maybe I should. So we're going to go over morning basket first, and then I'm going to talk about history, which was our ancient stream as well as our American US history. So again, back to the whole, I feel like I finally have my, I don't know, my veteran homeschooling badge. I don't know what you want to call it, but I feel like I'm really good at setting a schedule. If you saw my last video about what's in our morning basket, I talked about the schedule that we were planning to implement for morning time, and it went out without a hitch, just as I had intended. We stuck to maybe 30 minutes of morning time every day. One day I think it went up to 45 because we were really kind of following the rabbit trail with some stuff, so which is totally fine because I did schedule a 45-minute slot. But it went really well and it went really smoothly, and the girls really liked a lot of the subjects we were learning about. So some fan favorites from our morning basket were Blossom and Root Art Level 0, which includes an artist study, composer study, and an art activity every week. And this week we were studying Claude Monet for the art. So our art activity was learning about the practice of dabbing. And we did it to make some trees and dabbed the leaves on, just like the art piece we studied this week had. And we talked about how light was used on the leaves to show the sun coming from under or above and all that good stuff. So this is my oldest and this is my youngest. So cute. And then we studied, for the composer was Erilyn Wallen, who she's a modern day opera singer, I think, because the piece that we saw was her playing opera. So on the piano. I don't know how you sing opera and play the piano at the same time. Like, that is such a talent. I couldn't do one of those, so, you know. But it went really well. They loved it. Another fan favorite was, of course, Spanish. We hadn't done Spanish formal lessons. We speak it in phrases throughout our days, but we hadn't done formal Spanish in a couple of weeks, so I wasn't sure how it was gonna go. They hopped back in like nothing, you know, like they had just started doing Spanish last week. It was no big deal. It went so well, actually, that I decided to print out the Spanish 1 workbook, which comes separately. It's a separate purchase from the curriculum. It's a PDF file. I'll link their website down below if you want to go check out their Spanish and they have other foreign languages as well. But I printed it out for my youngest daughter. This is meant to be for older kids who are able to write and read. And my youngest is actually coming along really well with her writing and her reading. So she was like, I want to do the workbook. So I printed off the first couple of lessons. As you can tell, it's pretty thin because I was like, I don't want to print out the whole book and then you'd be like, I can't do this. So she's starting to catch up. We're not on lesson 1, we're on lesson 9 or 10, I think. So we're just gonna do a couple pages every day to kind of get her to catch up to the lesson we're at. But she was able to read all this stuff. Oh, my dog keeps crying. She wants to go play with the dogs, or he. But she was able to read all this and, you know, do all the activities, and she really liked it. We were working on rolling our R's, you know, carro. She can't roll her R's. Neither can my oldest daughter. From my understanding, some people just never are able to, but at a young age, a lot of times kids can't. And as they get older, they're able to roll the R's. So maybe she'll get there one day, but this is going really well. Spanish is going well. Awesome. Another thing that went really well was our Simple Studies Burgess Bird unit that we're doing. We read the first chapter of Burgess Bird book, and it was a fan favorite. The girls loved the coloring pages that come along with the program. They were coloring a house wren while I was reading a story about Jenny the wren. And what I realized is them coloring it, you know, their hands are busy, their ears are open. They listen so much better to the story. They didn't get distracted. They were focused in on this, which was connected to the story. Went so well. There was a poem that we read that also went along with it. It was just really, really nice, and they really, really enjoyed the nature study for that. Another thing that we really enjoyed this week for our morning basket was our free read pick for this week. And we are reading Heartwood Hotel, A True Home. I have not read this series, but I've heard such amazing things about it, so I'm so excited that we're finally reading it. We're about a third the way through. It is so good. Like, it is so sweet. The girls are engaged. They love it. My oldest daughter got to pick the first free read, so this was her pick. And then next will be my youngest daughter. She'll get to pick whatever we do for free read. This is not something we schedule. We just kind of read it as we're able to, a lot of times at night. Sometimes I would pull it out during morning basket, which is why I've included it in this segment of the video. For example, like when they were doing their art activity, while their hands were busy doing art, I read them 2 chapters out of here. So that's kind of how we're handling it. I'm not scheduling it, but it's going really well, and I really enjoy it. I think if we continue to enjoy it, I want to get the other 2 in the series and read those as well. Or actually, I think there's 4. I don't know. Comment down below if I'm wrong. I think it's 4. I don't know. But it's going so well. It's such a good book. All right, so let's get into history. We're going to start off with our ancient stream that we're doing, which we're reading Story of the World. We read the intro chapter this week, which was pretty light. It's just talking about what is history, what is archaeology, and I love that they started here. The way that they explained it made it so real to my kiddos and understandable. I get why people rave about Story of the World. It's really well written for a younger person to kind of understand the concept of history. You know, how do we know what happened? Through documents, through things that we find by digging up remains of old civilizations. So well done. On top of that, we did the activity for this week, which was my timeline. So the girls started creating their own timeline, starting with their birth, you know, when did they walk, their first camping trip, all this stuff. And we did that in their school nest notebooks. And that kind of was a fun activity to finish up this week for Story of the World. Something else we started was Dolores Greek Myths. We started the first 2 stories. The girls are enjoying them. I'm not sure if they really understand like what they are. Like, they're like, okay, so are these real people? I'm like, no, they're like the Greek gods. So just kind of think of them as stories of mythology. Every culture has their own mythology, and they're like, okay. And so I don't really know if they understand the why, but they're getting the stories, because the thing is that so much literature and such brings up Roman and Greek gods, so it's good for them to know about them, but I'm not sure if their little brains like understand it, you know what I'm saying? But it's going well, and they're enjoying the stories. And one other thing I want to talk about with regards to ancient history that we are adding in. I went the week before we started school, I went to our local homeschool store. I say it's local, but it is quite a hike, which is why I haven't been yet. In the 2 years that I've been homeschooling, I haven't gone, because it's quite the place. I walked in and I was like, this is awesome. Why haven't I been here yet? They have a whole side of the store that is all new curriculum. They've got everything in there. Like, I could go sit down for a day in there and I can study all the different curriculums, from Memoria Press to Fix It Grammar to, I mean, they had everything. I'm like, I can't even think of all the curriculums they had in there. But then they also have a side that is like consignment. Like, I can bring my used curriculum to them and then they sell it for me. And one thing I found, they had quite a lot of Book Shark in there. They had the hands-on history kit for Ancient World, which is level B. It's level B, but it coincides with what we are doing in Story of the World. So I went through the activity guide for Story of the World, and as well as the contents, like eras that will be reading about. And I went through this while I was at the store, and I checked. It was only missing like clay for one of the activities. and it was about half the price that I would have paid to get it off of Bookshark. I was like, let's do it. So I snagged the kit, and I figure we can throw these different hands-on activities in random weeks that make sense based on what we're learning about in Story of the World. So I'll update you guys on that when we do these. We're gonna make a yurt next week, so I'll have that in my first month's update. And I just thought it'd be fun for them to do. And if this goes well, I'll definitely be getting the hands-on history kit for next year if we do, Bookshark level C, which is the second year of world history. And they have a box like this also. Just having it all in one place, you're not searching for the different stuff. It's like so convenient, and it'll actually do the activity. So I was super pumped to find this. All right, last but not least, let's talk about American history with American Girl History from Little School of Smiths. We kicked off Felicity week 1 this week, and it was such a good week. And I am spreading 1 week of each of the girls out over 2 weeks. So it'll take us 2 years to go through the remaining girls that we're gonna do. And I think that's actually the perfect pace. It's not too much, but it's not too slow where it's disconnected. So it just went really well. We started reading Meet Felicity. By the way, I gotta show you this page in my planner. So this is under here, let me see this. This is for term 1, where I keep my term 1 stuff in my planner. I have this printable that came with my planner, and I'm printing out little front covers of the read alouds we're doing. And when we finish, we're gonna all say like what our star rating was for it, and then I'm gonna average them all, and I'm gonna put it in here so we can have a visual representation of what we read for that that term. I think that's gonna be so fun to look back on as a keepsake. So I have Heartwood Hotel and Meet Felicity in there. I just want to share that. I thought that was so sweet. But we started reading Meet Felicity. We started her Felicity's World book, so we're learning about the time that this is set in. King George is taxing the colonists, and they're not happy about it because they weren't given the opportunity to vote on taxation, even though they are citizens of the crown, and people who live in England are able to vote if they're taxed or not, so why can't we? You know, that whole thing. And then the Boston Tea Party and all that jazz happens, and then the Loyalists and the Patriots are going after each other. But long story short, they're actually really enjoying it. I think just reading through the eyes of Felicity just kind of gives them an understanding of the time period and what was going on there. And then one activity we did this week, I just wanted to highlight it in one of their sketches, was we learned about the 13 colonies. And Felicity lives in Virginia, in Williamsburg specifically. We also, learned that Boston Tea Party happened in Boston Harbor. So it's been a really good week overall, y'all. It's just been so fun. It's been the right amount of reading, hands-on, not too much work. I mean, if this is how the rest of our school year goes, I think this will be our best school year yet. So one last thing I wanted to end on was I interviewed the girls. A lot of this information I got because I sat down with them and I did an exit interview today. That's my HR side coming out from my previous life. But I was like, hey, let's do an exit interview. Can you tell me how this week went? I went through their core subjects, A lot of the feedback I'm giving you were their own words. But I asked them, I was like, what were your favorite subjects? Like, what was your most favorite of them all? So Charlie, hers was, shockingly, poetry. I really thought they were going to be potentially bored with this because there's no fun pictures, no colors. I mean, last year we did National Geographic animal poetry, which had beautiful colors, and they were these fun poems. I was like, this might not go over well. This might fail. No, Charlie straight up was like, I like poetry. It's so fun. I was like, wow, I need to stop trying to underestimate my kids. I don't even know what I would call it, but like that was really impressive to me. And then of course the other thing she said was science. And I asked her, I was like, why do you like the good and the beautiful so much? She goes, the activities. The problem is that I know that not every lesson has an activity. I only know that it just so happened these first 2 did. So I will be interested to see what she thinks of the lessons where there aren't so many activities. So let's cross our fingers. It still continues to go well, but science and poetry were her favorite. Now my 3rd grader's favorite was biology. She was so pumped about it, and again, it did not disappoint. She still had raving reviews about it. She's so excited to learn about plants, animals, and human anatomy this year. She was like, this is it. The second thing she loved was from morning time too, paper Sloyd. She really thought this was the coolest thing. So we actually, here I'm going to show you what the girls made. We learned how to fold envelopes. And so each of the girls folded their own envelopes following the instructions in here. I went over it with them. So I actually got this paper. It's 12 by 12. They're supposed to be 6 by 6, but that's fine. But I got it on sale at Michael's. It was one of those big scrapbooking pads of papers. I got 2 of them. They're going to last us for the next 5 years because there's so many papers in it. So I let them each pick out their own, you know, page that they wanted. They did the folding instructions, and I asked, I was like, what shapes are we using? And both girls said triangles. I was like, yes, the geometry is kicking in. So I thought that was kind of cool. So y'all, this was a long video. You knew it was going to be if it was an update from me. We are having such a good first week. Such a good first week. We're done. I cannot believe we're already done with our first week of school. All around wonderful things, not any really negative things to say at this point. We did some tweaking, we're trialing some things. So obviously if you're new to my channel and you haven't subscribed and you wanna know what ends up happening with our curriculum, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything. If you did enjoy this video, give it a thumbs up. It always helps me to understand what kind of videos to make for you guys. And if you have any questions about anything I discussed in this video, leave it down in the comments. I'm happy to talk to you guys down there. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye y'all.